Hello, welcome to Live Reality Games. Here for more coverage of Surviving Reelfoot, its most recent season, Bluff Ranch. My name is Steven, and today I am with the 10th place finisher from the most recent season, Sherry. Sherry, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. I think you are my last scheduled interview, so you get the final say on
Uh,
everything Surviving Reelfoot related. How's that feel?
After listening to everybody else, that's perfect.
Well, has anything surprised or shocked you that's come out in the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, there's been quite a few things. Basically, what the main thing that came out when I went to jury was Mike was in there before me,
Hmm.
and I thought that Shane, who I called Sean every 5 minutes, was somebody that I really connected with, and we had this kind of fun relationship. And Mike told me that Shane was trying to blindside me the night I used my advantage, and he was sitting next to me at tribal, and he's like, "You're safe. You don't need to worry about it. We're gonna work together." Blah blah blah. So that was my biggest surprise because I didn't get the game he was playing. I thought he was just kind of this aloof guy. I love him now. We've talked since, and I think he played a brilliant game, and I honestly would have voted for him. But that was a shock. I had no idea like he was totally trying to blindside me, telling me I was safe the whole time, and he'd protect me or whatever. So that was one surprise. I didn't realize, and this is probably my biggest regret in the game. I started to doubt Frank.
Hmm.
He was the first person that I actually talked strategy to, and we had this whole Malcolm and Denise thing. And honestly, before I came in the game, I thought since I was older, that would be my best play. And he was the first person I talked to, the first person, really the only person I talked, like, let's go to the end together.
Hmm.
And loved him to death. But like where he kind of started not talking to me at all, he was doing that so it wasn't obvious. But I thought he
You,
was like, had changed his
you
mind.
needed more reassurance.
Yes, I needed more reassurance. I don't play these live games. I don't do
Hmm.
orgs or any of that stuff. So in my opinion, I felt like, oh my gosh, I keep seeing him going off with Jarek and Skylar, and what are they talking about, and why
Hmm.
isn't he like even making eye contact with me anymore? So I got all paranoid that he was playing everybody. So that was part of the reason that I was part of that blind side. But I do realize after the fact, I've seen him twice since because he doesn't live far from me, and I was completely wrong, and it was just miscommunication. So I wish I had that to do over again. It might have been, it made more sense to keep him in and
Hmm.
something with that cult on the other side. Maybe he could have caused a lot of chaos, but unfortunately, that came to light after the game. I really thought I had read him correctly, but I absolutely did not. Um, and yeah, I guess those were the two big things that kind of surprised me.
Well, one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk to you is because I feel like you were one of the most well-placed, insulated members on that Rutherford tribe. When I'm asking all these players about, talk me who the targets are, what names are being thrown around, your name's never being mentioned, right? No one is at all coming for you at all in this game until the merge.
I know. And I honestly thought like that was my whole game plan when I came in. I was like, I'm older, they're usually the first boot. I'm probably
Hmm.
big, there's these much more bigger, athletic, younger people. I thought, so I have to play. I knew I'd be playing more of a social game. And I thought I have to play like kind of under the radar. In my real life, I'm pretty controlling. I'm pretty much a leader. And I was like, I'm going to have to downplay this and just kind of blend because I feel like if I get aggressive, in the first half of the game, I'm gone. Right. And
Hmm.
although, like, when I got to my tribe, I loved everybody. I got along with everybody well, some more than others, but didn't dislike anybody really in the whole game.
Hmm.
And so I started kind of playing that role, and I thought, well, what better person to kind of hide behind a little than Todd, the big giant military guy that everybody loves and is so, strong at everything.
Hmm.
So he was kind of like, I loved him to death and I loved working with him, but that was kind of my thought, like, this will at least protect me more. They're going to definitely go after him before me. And believe me, I had no idea the idol until he played it. So that was a shock to me. But so I thought that would be a good thing. And then I just tried to be social and nice, and it worked. And I kind of, blended in. And what shocks me about the whole thing is like Chris and Todd and I were the only three that like really had no idea about this world environment of live games and orgs, and somehow we were the three people left standing, right? Uh, so I guess I did a good job of blending, but my only problem with that is like my whole plan was to do that, until at least the swap or maybe the merge, so that I wasn't a target. And then once I got there, I thought, oh my gosh, I connected with several people on that tribe at the meet and greet. I thought, oh, I can make those connections. I can, make some big moves. I knew at some point I'd have to get Todd out, even though he was, probably my number one person I was working with, because I knew he'd win, because he's lovable and he was good at challenges. And so I knew that was eventually coming. But unfortunately, once we got to the merge, you kind of hit this wall of this
red wall,
where you're just like, everything I tried, they were nice, but like there was just no breaking through. And when I was prisoner of war and went to the tribal where they finally had to vote one of them themselves out, and they voted Kenny out, I mean, they were crying so hard, like I couldn't even hear anything they were saying. And I was like, wow, I mean, I love my tribe, but this is gonna be ridiculous to try this group.
Were you crying with them?
What?
Were you crying with them at that tribal council?
I cried all the time at tribal. It was very hard for me too. And I'm not a super emotional person, but it was very hard for me to watch people go. I just always felt bad, even if I wasn't working with them. So I felt bad because they all felt so bad. I didn't know Kenny from Adam, because I hadn't really talked to him much at the beginning. And Shane,
who's Adam?
What?
Who's Adam?
I said I didn't know him from Adam. That's just a saying. Like I didn't.
Gotcha. I was like
old saying. But I didn't know him at all. And so when we were walking in, Shane just whispered, "Vote for Kenny." And I, again, thought Shane and I were going to have something going at the merge. So I voted for Kenny. But yeah, I went back after that to I guess we were swapped at that point, and I said, "Oh my God, you guys! Like, I think we're going to have a very rough time living this group up." And it was very true. And I just, at some point you're just like, okay, unless something miraculous happens, we're going 1, 2, 3, sadly.
Well, backing up before the game begins, it sounds like you are a Survivor fan, right?
Huge. Yeah.
All right. So when did you start watching the show, and how'd you get into it?
Well, I've watched since the first season, and pretty much watched every year. There's a few years I might have missed, but what really prompted me is, for the whole time I've been watching it, I've been telling my husband and my friends, like, I could do that. Like, I want to do that. And I said it every year. 15 years later, I said it to one of my friends like 2 years ago, and she's like, well, when are you going to do it? Like, and I was like, my God, you're right. Like, I'm getting really old. And so during the pandemic, I started obsessing over it. And so I rewatched all the seasons, and I bought all these puzzles online that Survivor really does, and build a balance beam in the backyard. Like, I did all this crazy stuff. Kind of somewhat stalked a person that works on the show, who was very nice to me and actually kind of gave me some tips on how to do my video for Survivor. Like, I'm finally going to do it. And told my husband, like, we're making this video, and my God, we must have gone through 100 iterations of it. The first was terrible. And we literally probably almost got divorced about it, because we were just so in disagreement of what I should put in it. But we finally got a good one, and I kind of passed it by. I joined Adam Klein from Survivor, had a workshop. So he walked through my video with me, gave me some pointers. He's like, this is good, send it in. So I finally actually applied maybe in September of 2020. And then, of course, everything got delayed. Or was it? Everything got delayed. So I was like, okay, it's going to be at least like a year and a half and whatever. And so I just was going to wait and maybe do another video. And then the person that I had become friends with that worked on the show, I saw just something pop up on Facebook about Surviving Reelfoot. So I sent him a message. I'm like, what is this?
Is this William?
Yes, William.
Okay.
And nicest guy in the world. And I said, what is this? Like, should I do this? Like, this sounds like a good test. And he's like, oh, yeah. He's like, I was on it in season 8. And he's like, you should definitely apply for it. So I applied in December, and I think that they cast me like at the end of December. So I didn't find out about it till very late in the game, and got cast quickly. And then I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And, so literally had a room in my house where I was preparing all my clothes that I could bring, and thinking of luxury items, and trying to practice all these weird skills. It became pretty much my life as to how I was going to go on here. But I guess my misconception was, which was a huge eye-opening moment, or many moments on Reelfoot, was I didn't know about these live games. I thought Survivor, Real Survivor, was like it. And so I thought this was the only one. And I felt excited that I was part of it. And I didn't know about orgs or anything. So I was just walked in, and my husband and I were driving down from Cincinnati, and he's like, do you think it's just going to be a bunch of local people like that live down there? And I'm like, probably. And he's like, you're really going to need to dumb yourself down. Like, you I had all the lies in my head, what I did for a living, my life, that I was going to tell, because I thought, oh, it's probably a bunch of local people. And when I walked in and there was like lawyers and law students and people from Phoenix and LA, I was like, oh my God.
Where have I showed up to?
A much higher level of competition. And I feel like I am so not prepared. Like, I was even talking to Shane and he's like, oh yeah, I wore tie-dye because I wanted to look hippie-ish and kind of, and I'm like, people like plan their outfits for persona. And it never dawned on me that it was going to be like that. And so I was just shocked. And then the more I hung out at my Purple Rain Rutherford camp, I kept hearing them talk, and I could tell some of them knew each other from online. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm screwed. Like, this is going to be so hard. So it was so eye-opening. I am fascinated by this world now, though. And now I'm like obsessing over it. But at the time I was like, Todd and I were talking, we're like, what the hell is orgs? What are we? Who are these people? Like, right. So we were, at least I was a bit overwhelmed at first. So it took me a minute to just calm down and be like, okay, just do what you came here to do. You know, it's no different. But yeah, that was kind of how I got into it. So it's kind of, I just stumbled upon it, and then it became this much bigger thing. And believe me, it was so beyond my expectations of what I thought this whole experience was going to be. I mean, I felt like I was on Survivor. I really did. I mean, you know, obviously it's not like, you know, the big production crew, but I mean, the games were so realistic, the dynamics and the chaos and the hunger and the brain fog, like everything. I was just like, it was such a great experience. It just felt like I'm really like on the show, even though it's, you know, not quite CBS, but it was amazing. I mean, beyond my wildest dreams.
So you kind of touched on this already, but coming into the game, what was the strategy you were going to bring?
All I was going to do, like I said, was I'm going to just be, I mean, I knew I'd play a largely social game. I'm very social in my real life. I thought, you know, that usually works well. I knew I would likely, and everybody who watched it knew I would do this too. I would likely, you know, gravitate towards men because I do that in my real life. Everybody was like, we knew you were going to go to Todd. Like, we knew you and Todd would be, you know, in some kind of alliance. And you know, and I was like mostly with like Frank, Chris, Todd, and then on the other tribe, if I was going to, it was going to be Mike or Shane, you know. So there wasn't like a whole lot of females that I was thinking about strategy with, because that's just what I usually do in my normal life. In retrospect, you know, maybe I should have thought about that differently. And I did, you know, talk to Skylar and Jericho. We were in an alliance initially, kind of together, a bigger alliance, but so I knew that I would work with the men mostly. And I think I even said that when they talked to me. And then, you know, I knew I'd play social, and I thought I would be much better at the individual challenges because I'm much more about balance and stamina and memorizing and trivia. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play many of those, but which was disappointing. But you know, a couple of the challenges, I was like the kayak, totally screwed that one up, and I thought my husband was going to jump at me because we always kayak in a double kayak, and I kind of sit there and suntan. When I was by myself, I'm like, oh no, I should have been listening. But so, you know, I knew I probably wouldn't be the best at challenges. I knew I wouldn't be the worst. I mean, I'm pretty athletic and run and stuff, so I thought I'd be okay, but probably wouldn't stand out either way. And I knew I was just going to play so under the radar because I just didn't want to be noticed. And, you know, like I told people are like, how many kids do you have? And I just like, I said, oh, I have 3. And I just like, you know, said these ages because I wanted them to be younger than they were because I didn't want them to know how old I was. You know, in real life, I didn't have children of my own, but my husband has 7 kids. So I'm the stepmother of 7 kids. But I thought, God, if I say 7, even though they're, you know, they're my stepchildren, but, you know, they're like my children, people are going to go nuts, right? Like that's I got to reduce the number, you know, I can't have anything that makes me look different. And so all kinds of stuff like that kind of played into just, you know, kind of getting along with everybody. And I think that's why I didn't go to people and say like, hey, 1, 2, 3, or, you know, I was in alliances. I was in on most of the votes, really all the votes that I think, except for the, you know, when I got voted out. And I knew what was going on, and I would, you know, Todd and I would always talk about things and stuff, but I I didn't aggressively, like, I didn't want Nikki to go. Like, I had no desire. We had just that morning talked about maybe doing something. And when that came up, you know, I was like, oh, I'm voting, you know, I'm voting for Carlos. I'm not going down that road. Like, cause I thought potentially me and her could do something later. But so I didn't necessarily just follow the vote, but I certainly wasn't going to be really loud and aggressive about trying to change a vote if it wasn't going to affect me too much. Maybe if it was Todd or Chris, I would have, but you know, anybody else, I was kind of like, it's not me kind of thing. So, and I really, like, that was what was so disappointing. I really thought, like, when the merge happened, that's when my real, like, strategy,
the game would open up for you.
Strategic, and I can analyze things. I thought that's when I'm going to go. And then it just hit that wall. And I was like, maybe this isn't going to happen for me. Not this time.
So I'm curious, because you mentioned that coming to the game that you were preparing lies you could tell about yourself to kind of dumb yourself down. And then in the game, you just mentioned, like, people asked how many kids I had. I just said 3 kids and I made them young. What lies did you end up having to tell in the game about yourself?
Well, you know, that was my biggest one. And I thought I was going to lie about so much more. Like, I mean, I'm a strategic consultant for a big company in New York, but like, I was going to say, like, oh, I'm a bank teller, like, because I work in finance. But then I don't know, when I started talking to people at the meet and greet, you know, not some people lied. Like, I knew Sarah was lying. I knew she wasn't a receptionist. She was probably a therapist. You know, you could tell some people. Ronnie fooled me with his farmer stuff, but I just, the more people I talked to, and there were people like Taylor told me she was in law school, and it seemed, I could tell the level of competition and the people there were different than what I thought they were going to be. So then I was like, well, I don't think what I do sounds that daunting, and it's easier for me not to lie about it in case they ask questions and I get all twisted up about it. So I didn't end up lying about what I did. My probably biggest lie was that my husband was there the whole time, which was not planned, and he became part of the production crew. So I would see him every day, which was unnerving. But like, he was just going to stay to watch for like a day, and then I kept seeing him, and then my tribe handler's like, oh, he's on production now, he's staying the whole week. So everybody was like, I look at him and I try not to say anything. And actually, somebody even asked me when we were at the meet and greet, she's like, that's not your husband sitting over in that chair. He's just sitting there like he looks out of place. And I was like, no, that's not my husband. I think it was Amanda that kind of busted me. And I was like, no, I don't know who that is. But that was weird, because then as people got voted out, they were like, you know, they'd find out. And so when I got voted out, they were like, oh my God, he was out there the whole time.
So wait, because I saw some posts about some unofficial, like, extra member of production. That was your husband that joined in?
Yes.
That's awesome.
He actually told me the puzzle we had, or I think it was an octagon puzzle we had at the challenge, where we had to carry the ball. I can't remember what we called it, but it was at the end. We ended up winning that challenge, thank God. But he actually made that puzzle. And he's like, as soon as I made it and they like put it out, I thought, what if Sherry gets voted out because she screws up the puzzle I made? Well, then we would have a big problem. But luckily we won that. But yeah, so I mean, he became like one of the tribes. So that was really weird when I got voted out, because I had to stay in the jury room. So I would see him, but we weren't allowed to talk, to converse. So it was a strange dynamic, but he had a blast. So good for him.
So you and your husband have both kind of had a Reelfoot experience where you've got to talk about a lot since then.
I'll tell you, it's been phenomenal. And Pete kept telling me, like, you're going to be weird after this, and like, it's going to take a while to decompress. And I was like, I'm pretty adaptable. You know, I had a great time. I did way better than I thought I was going to do. I'm so happy and proud I was even able to sleep outside for one night. And, but it was so hard when I got home. Like, and he was the same way. We were both like, it was such a great experience. It was so great, like, not having your phone and just being, you know, off the grid for a week, and you meet these people and you've known them a week and you're like, you love them. I mean, I've seen some of them twice already, and we've been back, less than a month. So it's this weird kind of family, and then you feel like sad and depressed. And I was like, this may be the coolest thing I ever do. Like, what's next, right? Maybe get on the real show. But we both went through this weird couple weeks where it was just really hard to acclimate back into the real world. And it still seems like, you know, that was such a dream experience. Now it's like, God, do I really want to like be on my computer all day and do a job like this? And, you know, there's so much more to life. But it was really nice to have him, because he understood, because I would bet, like, otherwise your spouse or partner or friends are probably like, okay, you can stop talking about it now. because you just break down the game over and over. I should have
Yeah.
this. Like, it drives you nuts. So I finally had to stop. I was like, okay, you went farther than you thought you would. You made jury. You're good.
So, walking into that opening lunch, when the meeting grew with all the players on that very first day, where you don't know the tribe assignments, who were you talking to? Who were you gravitating to? Or were there anyone that was giving you kind of some red flags, like, I need to watch out for this person?
Yeah, there was several people from the Cincinnati area that I talked to a lot, like Mike, um,
Hmm.
Lydia a bit. She lives very close to me, actually. And so I started thinking, like, maybe that would be something. But what the scary part was, the people that I really talked to a lot were like Amanda, Mike, they were Shane, they were all ended up on the other tribe.
Hmm.
So when the tribe split, I was like, oh my God, everybody that I really talked to a lot and felt like I had a good connection with is not on my tribe. Not that I
So,
didn't talk to other people, but way more people on the other tribe. So I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I feel like I got put on the wrong tribe. But I'm telling you, I was so happy because at the end of the day, because all the people on the purple tribe were just amazing. And, in 5 minutes, like I felt fine with them. It was just, I hadn't connected with them as much during that
mhm.
initial period. So I was like, oh God, did they all connect? And I didn't. In fact, a funny story, I was leaving my hotel that morning. They picked me up and I saw Todd walking in and I looked, I think it was Amos, or I don't know, maybe my husband was standing out there. I looked at him, I said, God, I hope he's not playing. He walks in. Oh God, thank God we were working together. But I was like, he looks like he could be trouble.
So, what was your initial impression of your tribe when you saw the group of people that was all put together?
It was just, I just felt like they were all, well, Todd was my age, but like I knew they were all way younger. And like the conversation walking back to the tribe, like was things that I'm not normally, interested in. Like, we would talk about Harry Potter. And it's funny because my boss has always called me Hermione. And I'm like, I don't know that. I don't watch Harry Potter. Like, I don't know anything about it. But so it was very educational as to what my boss really thinks about me, since now I know a lot about Harry Potter. But they're asking me like what house, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are the houses? But it was very fun because like I've learned about it. Now I want to watch it. But and they some conspiracy theory things. Like it was just all these things that I'm just like, I'm like a sports person, like, and all this stuff. And I just felt like, okay. And then they're talking about these orgs, which for a long time I was like, does that mean organization? Like what organization? I was kind of like a fish out of water for a while. I just listened
Mhm.
for a long time. I think Nikki was probably the first person that I felt really comfortable, like, and had, the most conversation with, and Todd.
Mhm.
But it took a minute for me to be like, okay, just listen. You don't have to say you don't understand any of this or you have no idea what they're talking about.
Mhm.
But it quickly, like, we just got back to camp and we literally just started working. And then, nobody really asked too much about each other at all. Like, we just started doing the camp, and then we had that challenge where you had to do the air
SOS challenge.
thing. So we worked on that. And I swear it was dark before we ever sat in a circle and said, hey, where are you from? What's your last name? What are you good at? Like it was nighttime and we had spent
Mhm.
the whole day with each other. So it was kind of a different dynamic because I talked to some people in Carlton and they like did that immediately, right? They were
Mhm.
so organized compared to us that maybe that came through in some of the challenges. But we just had fun and eventually it just all gelled. And, I found similarities with different people and it worked. But I was initially kind of shell shocked, like, oh no, like I didn't talk to a lot of these people as much.
So, not really any strategy talk happened that first night for you then?
No, not at all. And I'll tell you that is something too. I think I kind of came in slow to the start. I was just so enamored with being
Mhm.
there and getting to know people. And like I was worried about the outdoor elements because I literally have probably camped 5 nights in my life and I don't like bugs. I don't like to be hot. I don't like
You've
to be
doubled that now.
wet.
You've doubled that now.
Oh my God. I'm totally good with it now. But like I was very nervous about sleeping outside the first night. And so all of that was in my head. And I was like poison ivy and snakes and all that. So I really wasn't thinking game hardly at all. I was just like, I just need to get to know people, be social. I want people to like me. And be in with the crowd. Don't like separate or go look for an idol or anything, which upsets me because Todd said he found the idol walking to camp, and that wasn't even a thought.
In the first hour. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I wasn't even there yet. So I was a little slow to start with that. But the next morning, I think, is when Frank and I, talked. And that was the first kind of strategic conversation we had where we thought we would work together, and only person I really talked about going to the end with. And then later Todd approached me, and he was like, I think we have some wisdom on these kids. I think you and I should try to work together. And I think, we will have more patience and stuff. And so then we came together, and I had told him I had talked to Frank, and then I think Frank had brought Jerica and Skylar in. So then that was kind of the first bigger alliance that we were all a part of until that kind of disintegrated. But yeah, it was definitely day 2 for me before I started going there.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything you want to talk about those opening reward challenges?
Let's see, what were the opening reward challenges? So, well, I will say, and this is no discredit to Sarah, because she did great at the Suma thing with Skylar. That was epic. But I will say that I sort of threw that because I had some pretty major back surgery a year ago, and I had been in pain for many, many years, and the back surgery worked. And so I had talked to my doctor. He's like, you can go, you should be fine, but just be careful. So I was very nervous, like going into that if something happens and I screw up my back, like it's not worth it. So I really didn't try that hard. I was embarrassed. I felt like, thank God we won that, because I thought otherwise I'm like the bad challenge person. But I definitely did not put effort into that just for my back and for health reasons. And I was super glad, because I think it was like 2 people later that Taylor's knee got all screwed up. And I'm like, see? I feel terrible that her knee got screwed up, but I was like kind of happy with my decision, more happy that we actually won it without me helping much. But, that was kind of something I didn't. But I loved the reward when we got to go. I loved the reward when we got to go to the state park, and it was beautiful. And unfortunately, Pete forgot the food, so we had to walk around starving until we got back and eat. But other than that, it was really nice to just get out and be in an air-conditioned car for a while and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it sucked. I mean, we lost too much. And I feel like, in thinking back, and I think Todd said it several times during tribal, like, the other tribe, when I went over to their camp one, it was 50 times nicer than ours. So close. Like, we were exhausted. I felt like we walked a mile to go back and forth the challenges, and they were like right there. And I'm not making excuses, but it was a lot different over there. But they were just in general very organized. Like, when we swapped, they had little toothbrushes, and they had places where everything went, and the fire were like, big sticks here, small sticks here. Justin does the fire. Like, don't mess around with it. Like, Amanda was the cooker. Everything was so organized, and we're like, oh my God, like, our stuff was everywhere. Like, our camp was a mess. Like, we made our bed on a downhill slope the first couple nights before. I think it was Tony, our tribe handler, who said, I wondered why you put your fire pit like on the only flat place in the entire campsite. We did eventually move it, but a little too late. But we just, we had fun. I guess we weren't as organized, but I felt like in the challenges, even, like, we did not put the right people in the right place. We didn't strategize well enough and know each other enough to know what to do. So, like, that bucket challenge, Aaron wanted to be in the front because he thought he wouldn't get as wet, right? And, that wasn't the smartest move. We should have had a really strong person, Carlos, somebody at the front end of that. And then Aaron told me after the fact, like, he didn't want to get me wet or get mud on me because he was throwing water at me. I'm like, you could get me wet. I was fine, But, that, and then, like, the kayak where we had to do the Morse code. Like, first we only memorized 4 letters each, which was a mistake because we didn't get to work together like we thought we would. And then the kayak, I said, oh my God, like, I've never really kayaked by myself, which makes me mad. I didn't think to practice that. I took swimming lessons for 9 months before I went to become a great swimmer, but didn't think about the kayak part. But regardless, I knew I wasn't going to do very well. And so I was like, well, let me go early, because then, like, Todd and Frank can pick up the time in the back. Well, we didn't, I guess, listen, because I never had to go. Like, you just had to get so many through. Everybody didn't have to do it. And when we figured that out, it was pretty much too late. I'm not sure we would have won that anyway, because, the whole did we throw it or not? I don't think we did. I don't know for sure if Frank did or not. Nobody knows. Jury's still out on that. But just things like that where you just didn't put the right people in the right places, you know. And I feel like had we made a few different decisions, we probably would have won more of those challenges. You know, the reward we won was like a half a sandwich and a freezy pop and I think some stale chips. So, you know, but and at the time it was weird. The hunger thing was weird. Like that was like day one, or maybe I guess it was
the first full day, like day 2.
Yeah, and I couldn't even eat the sandwich. Like I guess my stomach shrunk really quick, so I like gave it to Todd, figuring he needed it more than I did. But yeah, it was weird. Like the reward challenges weren't as important, kind of. Like I don't know. I think we, you know, I don't know. It seemed like more effort was on the other ones. It was nice to win them, and obviously I wish we would have won more, but it was it was harder than I thought. Like the pace of the game was so fast. And I guess you should figure that there's, you know, 18 people, you're only there for 7 days, and you're going to have to vote out multiple people, you know, a day. And so with reward and immunity, that's a lot of challenges, but I guess I didn't like map it out in my mind. And I was just like, you know, you get back from one and you have, you know, a little bit of time and then go to another. So time to strategize, time to look for idols, and just sheer exhaustion. I mean, it made it rough, and it was a very fast pace that I guess I wasn't thinking about before I got there. I somehow made it through it all, but it was definitely something that I didn't think through, like how fast it was going to be.
Well, as you're going through all these reward challenges, right? You know, eventually you're going to have to get to immunity challenges. Looking at your tribe, were there any people that you're like, I think I can, like, these are maybe the people I want to vote out?
You know, like I said, I had a really hard time with wanting to vote anybody out.
That's
but
fair.
I did know, like the first tribal council, I mean, my heart melted. I loved Aaron so much. He is the sweetest soul and just so out of his element. And I just thought it probably took him so much to get here. And I think Amos told me they've been trying to get him to do it for years. So, I mean, to vote him out first was just heartbreaking because I knew how hard he was trying. And but I never talked strategy to him. Like he slept quite a lot, you know, the first day or two, and you could tell he was just kind of out of his element. I wasn't sure if he like wanted to be there after like a few hours. You know, poor guy was like head to toe covered all the time because he didn't want to get ticks and stuff. And I get that, but I think, you know, we all just thought, you know, that was probably the right move. I can't remember if that was unanimous, but that's
unanimous.
Yeah, but I mean, I did cry when he went out because I just felt like, oh, he finally got out here, and now we're gonna vote him out first, and like that's the worst thing. I mean, nobody wants that, but that one was hard. And then after that, you know, it got a little easier because like unfortunately for Carlos, who I really like he went to the store first and brought back crazy stuff and spent a ton of money. Like nobody believed him. And so he might not have had an idol, but he had an advantage for sure. And, you know, we all kind of saw through that. So he was going to be an easy vote at some point. And then that is actually who I would have voted out second. Then Frank kind of went down the Nikki train, and he told me the fact that like he saw Nikki comforting me when I was upset after Aaron got voted out. And he didn't like that we were, you know, getting close like that or whatever. So that's why he threw her name out there, and it worked. I thought Carlos was going that night, but I guess he got enough people to go, Nikki. And like I said, I didn't want her to go because I thought maybe we could work together. And then, you know, with the thing that happened with Jerica and Skylar got voted out on the swap, but when Amanda came to our camp as prisoner of war, who I really had connected with at the meet and greet, so we talked a bit, and as she was like, you know, we were kind of walking, she said, you know, Jerica and Skylar think you're a likable mom, and I think they're going to try to get you out at some point soon. And I totally believed her. I shouldn't have, but I totally believed her. And I thought, okay, that's not going to happen. So, you know, and Jerica and Skylar were part of the kind of Frank, Sherry, Todd alliance as well. So that's when I kind of, you know, started talking a little bit to Todd and like, you know, I like her, but I feel like Jerica, like, I feel like she's after me, you know, and I've heard this and I don't know if it's true, but she's really smart at this game. She's really like knows stuff like the back of her hand. And so I thought she was such a huge threat. So that was, I felt terrible, but I felt like that was the right move there. And then, of course, Carlos went, and then Frank, which in retrospect, I don't think that was the right move. And, you know, my reasons for voting Frank out were different than Todd's were.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I worked with him on it, like, you know, he had a different perspective. I really thought that Frank was kind of working with people to try to, you know, and I, like I said, hadn't talked to me in a long, long time. So I thought maybe our alliance is no longer there. And I got paranoid. And I also thought, like, just some of the way he was acting with the other tribe, I thought if we merged, like, he's probably going to go to everybody and have 1,000 alliances. And I'm just one of, you know, a million. And the uncertainty of it all just got to me. And I was like, we probably should get rid of him. But in retrospect, like, I'm not sure we would have gotten the numbers back, but it would have helped to not not get him out, right? Like, at that point. But
so looking back, that first day of tribal councils, talk to me about the prisoner of war twist, right? Because you have Lydia come visit, you have Mike come visit, you have Amanda come visit. What was your thought of this twist? How'd you try to play around it?
You know, I thought it was a good twist. I always like Unreal Survivor when they did that long ago. The only, you know, the few that came out to our camp, which Lydia, like, that was a disaster, and I felt so bad. I don't think I was the ones that was really mean to her, but we, you know, we all thought she was lying about being sick. You know, people were digging through her throw up. You know, I was running, following her, playing an idol because I thought she was faking it too. And then finally, like, right before she left, I was like, you know, I don't know if you're really sick. I'm really sorry if you are, and stuff. But I mean, I feel like it was such a terrible experience for her to be on our camp. I was happy to hear that Frank had talked to her a little and been nice to her. And she said to me, she goes, somebody's going to need my vote. And at this point, none of you are getting it, basically, right? And I was like, okay, maybe that wasn't the right move for all of us to go, like, ape shit, following her and not believing her. But so that was kind of hard after the fact. I felt terrible. And then when Mike came, it was pouring down rain. So like, we're all huddled under a tarp the whole time. So you really couldn't talk much with Mike. And it's unfortunate because I felt like Mike and I had a good connection at the meet and greet. I felt like at some point, if anybody was going to maybe turn, it would have been him, especially after the Justin vote out and stuff later in the game. And I really liked him. And but there just wasn't anywhere to go. And, you know, people were scrambling with the Skylar at that point. And so I don't feel like there was much talk going on. People kind of left the coverage of the tarp and went off in little groups, but I just didn't feel like that was the greatest setting. So I don't feel like I got much time with Mike or, you know, anybody else at that point. At that point, you know, my mind was made up that I was voting for Carlos at that point. So, but then when Amanda came over, that kind of, and I, you know, I, like I said, I got along with her. I believed her. And later in the game, I found out, like, or later after, you know, she was a really good liar about a lot of things. But, you know, maybe I shouldn't have, like, you know, questioned Jerica, you know, when she told me that. And she was probably just, you know, trying to stir up trouble or something. But I did. And then it sucked when I went over because I was the one that got screwed, where I became prisoner of war. But then I had to go immediately to tribal council. So I got no time at their camp. And got no time with any of their people. And all I got to do was sit there and watch everybody cry for 20 minutes and got no information because nobody was talking. They were all crying. So mine was I felt like mine was kind of like a waste. I couldn't, and then they gave me a clue and there was just no time for me to even give it. So I just kind of threw it at Shane and I was like, sorry, I don't know how else to get this to you. But you know, that kind of stung because that might have been a good way to get a little bit more familiar with some of them before the merge, where maybe it would have helped. Probably not knowing that tribe, but maybe. But I don't know. I think it's a good twist. I just feel like I probably got the worst session of it just because I didn't go do anything.
So at that Jericho vote off, right? The vote ends up being between Jericho and Todd. Doesn't sound like there's any way you're voting Todd at this tribal council.
No.
All right, and so, like, if it's not Jericho, are you trying, like, who do you want to push it on?
I mean, I thought the vast majority of us were going to vote Jericho. I knew Skylar wasn't because Skylar was definitely, you know, said, hell no, we're friends. And we told her, like, you don't have to, then don't vote, right? And I didn't really know who she was going to vote for, but I knew Skylar would not vote for Jericho, which I totally understood. And, but I was not aware the rest of the votes were going on Todd. Like,
which is Amanda and Carlos.
Yeah, and I'm feeling they probably didn't tell me that because Todd and I were closer, right? I would have told him, and he had the idol at the time, but he would have played it. So that was shocking to me. And I'm still, I think I watched one of the podcasts where I think Carlos flipped to make it a tie or something. And then Frank talked him into flipping it back, which was awesome. But I mean, Skylar was livid after that tribal council because she's like, first you guys, I went along with your plan. I didn't want my friend to go, but I went along with it. And I wasn't going to write her name down. Then somebody forced a tie where I had to go through the whole thing again and like watch my friend all upset. So she was so pissed when we were walking back to tribal. And that's when she tripped and hurt her ankle because she was walking really fast. And so we were sitting there, when we got back to camp, and she was all, crazy because she was hurt and upset, and talking to her. And she was just like, we have to get Carlos out. And I'm like, well, that's what I would have thought that would have been the other vote that night was Carlos. So I was somewhat surprised that became a tie with Todd. And, but I don't know. I don't know when Todd was decided, but I totally understand why nobody would have told me that because I would have told him.
If your tribe goes to another tribal council after that, who do you want to vote for? If
we go to one after Jericho leaves?
Yeah, after Jericho leaves, it's the 6 of you.
I was still Carlos.
Gotcha.
Like, I just didn't trust him. And was that like after Jericho? Didn't we swap after that?
So you swap morning of day 4. So this is where I end at day 3 right now.
Yeah. So I think Jericho. So it was. Let's see. I had this memorized.
It was you, Todd, Carlos, Skylar, Chris, and Frank.
Okay.
That's what your tribe's down to right now.
Go over to the other tribe for the swap, and the 4 of us go with Amanda, Ronnie, and Taylor. So that's when my initial thought, of course, was we would take Ronnie out or try to. Well, we would have because we had the numbers. But then somehow in discussions throughout the day, Chris, Todd, and I decided Frank for different reasons. And that happened, which maybe wasn't the smartest thing. But and then, Skylar got voted out by the other tribe, which I probably wouldn't have targeted her because we had a good relationship and I thought we would work well. And then when we merged, I tried, like, I knew it was going to be rough, but like, I tried to talk to Amanda. I tried to talk to Sarah. I tried to talk to Taylor, like, guys, whatever we do, we shouldn't vote a girl out. And I am totally not a Girls Alliance person. Never thought I'd do it.
But if it keeps the target off of you, by all means.
But I was like, I know it's going to be Todd, me, Chris, 1, 2, 3. At that time I knew Todd had the idol. And I was like, so I need another play here, and they're so tight. So I thought if I went to them and was like, we should at least try not to vote the girls off. You want to vote Todd and Chris off at some point, fine. But like, we should try to stick together till we get the numbers, right? And this is before we knew Lydia was coming back in. And so I tried, and they kind of were nice about it, but I didn't get a warm fuzzy that they were ever going to switch to that, right? And Amanda said, I thought about it, but I knew I'd go further if I just stuck with, my little cult. So they did, but but that was disappointing because I could kind of tell that was probably, but I tried that. I tried to talk to Shane when we merged, and we had such a good connection. And again, like, he played me like a fiddle. I thought we were going to be good. I thought he was going to help me. The day I knew I was probably going home, I was looking for an idol, and he was like, if I find it, I'm going to give it to you. And he says he really would have. I don't know if he really would have, because he gave me all these false sense of security, but like, that didn't work out. We tried to get Mike and Taylor because they were kind of on the bottom of the Carlton group. But unfortunately, like, when Todd put us all in that circle and, the big 7, and kind of announced in front of everybody that we were working together. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the video, but the body language of me and Chris was just like, and look at Mike and Taylor and know this is not the way we should have done this. And I get what he was trying to do, like, scare the other team, like, we're going to stick together. But I knew immediately, like, this isn't going to work. And then I talked to Taylor afterwards, and she's like, if we would have done this quietly, I would have. But it's too much, and we're going to be targets, if we do anything with you guys. And I knew Mike, was didn't like it either. So I knew that was not going to work. So that's why, like, I had that advantage, which most people knew I had, and the safety without power. And, I thought Chris was nervous that night, and he was like, can I use that? And I was like, well, I might give it to you. Like, cause I felt safe. I had not heard my name at all. And Shane was telling me, oh, you'll be the last to go. And So I felt pretty safe. And then I just randomly walked up to Ronnie laying on the tree he was on a lot. And I said, well, how are you feeling tonight? I haven't talked to you that much. And he goes, oh, I feel okay. He's like, we got the numbers. And he goes, but I've heard your name. And I was like, oh, you have? I was like, that's news to me. So then I went to Chris and I'm like, I don't think I can give this to you. Now I'm paranoid. People have been scrambling all day. And now I think I need to use it. So I was at that point, my kind of antennas went up and I'm like, okay, I'm not giving this. I'm going to use this. Like, I'm going to have to use this, I think, unless I get some, different vibe at tribal council. So, I think Todd still thought we were all going to vote together. I knew for a fact, Mike and Taylor, no way we're going to do it at least that night. So I knew we had kind of lost them for that vote. So I thought, well, I'm not screwing my team over if I get up and leave because we don't have the numbers anyway. So I played it, and like I said, which I thought I might have wasted it because I had one or two more times I could have played it. But, when I got to jury and Mike's like, oh, no, you were definitely going that night. And Shane's job was to make you feel like you weren't. And I was like, well, I actually used it correctly.
Thank you, Ronnie.
But yeah, thanks to Ronnie. And I heard, Shane got all pissed off afterwards at Ronnie for putting a little bird in my ear and telling me. But I mean, had I not heard that, I'm not sure if I would have given it to Chris, but I might not have used it. And that would have been, if I would have gone out and not used an advantage or idle and had one, I would have been crazy. So thank God. Thank you, Ronnie.
So speaking of the merge, right? You merge at 10, but you learn about this, not person war twist, you learn about this missing in action twist, right? 2 of the 8 players who've been voted are coming back in. You're looking at those 8. You've voted out a decent amount of them.
Yeah.
Which ones were you hoping to come back in the game?
I was hoping Skylar would come back in the game for sure. Lydia was one I thought, I knew she wasn't too aligned to the other side. I didn't think I had a bad relationship with her. Like I said, I don't think I was one of the ones that was really mean when she came over. I thought we could maybe, get her. I knew her and Chris seemed to have some type of relationship. So I thought we could probably, she would be good to pull in with us. I even wouldn't have hated. I felt, even though Frank told me after the fact that if he came in, he was going to blow up me and Todd's game and just spread lies and just kill our games. I didn't think that at the time. And I thought, I think I can explain to him why I did that. And, maybe we can work together again. So I don't think I would have hated if he came in, but to have, 2 of the original Carlton come back in, especially Justin, was disheartening, even though I knew Lydia probably wouldn't work with them, due to how she was treated over there. Like, it still was like, oh God, we didn't get Skylar, we didn't get Jared, we didn't get anybody. Like,
you had above 50% chance to get a original Rutherford, and it just didn't work out.
I know, and the fact that was like almost like a cornhole challenge, and Justin runs a cornhole league. Come on, like.
Not saying we didn't rig the season for Justin, but it was a challenge in his wheelhouse.
That was something that shocked me when I talked to Mike at Jury Room 2. Like, I thought Mike was running the show, like 100. I think most of us did on that tribe. He was so intense and like he just seemed like he's so strategic. And when he told me, like, no, I was more the social person. Justin was the one in the background, like strategizing, and that's why he tended the fire all night so he could watch people. And I mean, I just thought, no offense to Justin, because I've learned differently, but at the time, he just seemed like an aloof kind of guy that was just whatever. And he's probably the person I talked least to. I mean, we talked a few times after the merge, and at that time he's like, well, would you vote Todd out? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to eventually, and stuff like that. But at that point they didn't need me, so I'm like, what's the point of flipping? Like, it doesn't make sense. I tried to maybe get him to come to our side, but then he'd be at the bottom of ours and he would leave numbers. It didn't make any sense. But yeah, that was the biggest surprise, that it was really Justin. So kudos to him for winning, because apparently he was, kind of the strategist behind all of that. But totally from the other side, we thought Mike was definitely the biggest threat, which is why that blindside happened, because we thought we're getting him out. And for no second did I believe Justin and Mike were really fighting. Like, I'm like, they kept saying they were, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I believe you guys. Like, this is it. And it was, I mean, I think they really were upset at each other for a minute, but game mode, they just exploded that. And, I kind of saw through that, and I thought they're not going to really, blow their numbers and come with us. I mean, Mike, maybe because he felt at the bottom, but yeah, Justin was definitely doing a lot more than I thought he was.
I want to talk about your relationship with Chris and Todd at the merge because from what I gather, right, you three were kind of the alliance of necessity. There was never anything formal. You were never making deals, just kind of like, well, shoot, this is all we have, so we're gonna run with it.
Yeah, I mean, there really wasn't. I mean, Todd and I had a conversation early, and he's like, we should probably work together. We're older, like we'll work well together. Never said like we're going to the end together or anything like that. And then eventually, Chris was pulled in, and I really liked both of them. I had a good, fun relationship with both of them. Felt comfortable around them. We would always talk about things. It wasn't like, and Todd asked me several times if, do you think people think I'm a dictator here? Like, and I said, quite frankly, like he would always come and say, what do you think about this? And like, with the Nikki, I'm like, I'm not voting for Nikki, things like that. So it wasn't like he told us what to do. We had conversations and agreed or disagreed or, things like that. So I definitely didn't think that about him. He was just louder, right? Like, and more noticeable. But yeah, we really did. We just agreed and kind of, since especially when we were the last three, like to do that. And then when Lydia came back in the game, I could tell immediately her and Chris were just like this, right? Like I was like, oh, hopefully I'm on a good side of them because I can tell like Lydia's this super strategist, like, and she had revenge and she had something to prove. And I'm like, and so they were just chatting that whole first night. And I knew I was good with Chris at least and Todd. And I wasn't super involved in how that whole vote, like they came up to me and said, would you vote Mike? I'm like, hell yeah, as long as it's not me, because I know I'm in trouble. And everything had to work perfectly. And thank God it did. And that's credit to Lydia, not me. But luckily, it saved me for another vote or so, and one more vote. And I got to stay and at least try to find an idol and try to do something. But yeah, I feel like, I don't feel like we would have ever gone after each other. I mean, I wouldn't have gone after Todd until like if there was been a break in the other tribe, I mean, I knew I wouldn't beat him, not in a million years.
Yeah.
And so I would have at some point, if we had some room to move around in that merge, I would have tried to target him. And Chris, I didn't feel like I needed to do anything there because there were just certain people that like wrote his name down. I don't really know why several times. And like, we had heard there were some people on the other tribe that had some kind of beef with him from something about the meet and greet. So I felt like, Chris will go before me. Like I always thought he would, because I thought I just know some people here just seem to have an issue with him. And I don't feel like anybody has an issue with me, but I guess they thought I was some kind of social threat above him or something. But yeah, it was never like, it wasn't like, we had Frank and I, and then we had the group of five, with Jerica, Skylar, and Todd and Chris, Chris wasn't even in that one. And then it just kind of morphed and we just kept voting together, and we voted I think we voted pretty much the same on every vote until, we all started going. But yeah, it was kind of just like natural. It was weird. Like, I mean, I didn't feel the need to say like, don't vote me out. Like I felt like we just understood.
Because I get the sense that, let's say we're in a world where at the final 11, right, it's Lydia, Mike, and Taylor, let's say all three of those jump ship with you and you run that 6. I don't think like the three of you, Todd and Chris, are going to stick close tightly to the end. I think the three of you would have scattered and like really just gunned for each other at certain points.
Yeah, 100% correct. I think if we would have been able to shake up the other tribe, I think for sure I would have wanted to work with Mike, Taylor, Lydia. There were certain people over there that I would have wanted to go off with. And I think definitely Todd would have, as much as I loved him, would not have been somebody I wanted to even have the chance of sitting next to or to go to individual immunities, because God knows, he's strong and good at that stuff. So I think if we would have had room and things would have been shaken up, I think we would have broken up for sure.
So talk me through your last travel counts that you attend to the final travel, this final 10, right? The immunity challenge is you hold those long paddles, those really long, heavy paddles with the balls, right? I think you did pretty decently in that challenge.
Yeah, that was my best one. And I swear that paddle weighed,
it's heavy.
I couldn't believe
very
it.
Heavy.
Be like a ping pong thing. This is really heavy. No, and that's why I said like I wanted to be able to do immunities, because I have good balance and like I can focus. And when I'm dependent on myself, like I'm much more like motivated. Like I'm kind of a perfectionist, and so for me that's better than like a team challenge where like, oh, somebody else can like help, if I screw up or something like that. So it was I had a much better mindset at that point. And I told Amos, I said, in Real Survivor, a lot of times, and after the merge, they occasionally have a woman and a man that win immunity.
That this is the time.
Time. And I said, I stood there for a long time after the other girls were out. And I said, but I mean, seriously, there's not a chance in hell I'm beating Todd. Like, his arm is bigger than my body. Like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to hold this. So unfortunately, yeah, at some point I lost balance and it went, but I mean, I was happy about that. I knew I needed it. I knew that I was in trouble. And, unfortunately, Amos, take note. We should have women and men winners.
So at this point, right after the Mike blindside, right? Todd has immunity, so if it is the original Rutherford, it's you or Chris, and you end up all trying to get the votes and running, and a kind of last ditch attempt. Like, who are you wooing? How are you going to try to make that number work?
Well, I feel like, I don't know if you knew this, but like the tribal council that I left with my advantage, they came back and they're like, Todd pulled out his idol. And I was like, what an idol. And like, I didn't know, I thought he played it. They just pulled it out and I thought he had played it. I thought he didn't have it anymore.
I remember you were pretty upset about him not revealing it.
Yes. And I thought it was gone until I'm frantically searching for an idol and I see him and he's like, and I said, oh, I guess since you used it right, he goes, oh, I didn't use it. I just pulled it out. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in really big trouble. Cause I thought they'll vote Todd out before me. So now I realize he's got the idol. Now I know I'm really screwed. Yeah. I mean, my whole play there with Ronnie, and he's a great guy, but my whole thing was, I didn't talk to him that much, but when I talked to him, he said to me, like, I just wanted to make jury. Like, I'm fine to go. Like, you could tell he didn't feel well, and I didn't realize he was diabetic at the time, so that had to be horrible, and he wasn't eating rice and all that stuff, and he's a great guy, but I thought, I want to win this, like, more than anything. Like, so the play was kind of like, guys, come on, let's keep people here that want to win, don't just want to be jury, right? So I think we were all kind of playing that angle, and like, he doesn't feel good, so he's not really collecting firewood or doing camp stuff, and we thought maybe somehow, we could get that. And I know, like, there was a weird thing at that vote where Chris had said, I have an advantage, Lydia has an advantage, we'll both try to save you. And then Chris played his, and then I feel like I couldn't really understand what happened, but she told Lydia, don't play it.
Because it wouldn't matter.
Anyway, so I felt bad because Chris kind of wasted his, and it wasn't going to work out anyway, but I appreciated them trying to have my back. But yeah, so I mean, that was my last ditch effort that, we could talk people into voting Ronnie out just for the sheer fact of he didn't feel good. And, we all kind of were a little bit more aggressive about wanting to win and play. But he beat me fair and square. He made it to the end.
So now you're on the jury, and so is there anything you want to talk about your time in the jury? Because you end up spending, you're with Mike initially, the rest of your tribe joins you soon, then Lydia. Anything you want to say before we talk about the final tribal council?
I mean, I had a blast. I had a blast. We were in this little room, and at first I walked in, I'm like, wait, we're all going to stand here? But it was a blast. When I went in, Mike took his game very seriously, and he was very upset. And, I had kind of a different experience. I guess I don't play these games. He's played some other games, and he wanted to beat his last placement, and I think he missed it by one.
Yeah.
And, was blindsided, didn't see that coming. So he was very upset. And so we did a lot of, just breaking down his game. And he was like, what could I have done? And I said, honestly, you just need to dumb yourself down. Like, you seemed like the target, like you seemed intense and strategic. And I said, I don't know what you do, but I feel like that was, you just look like that person that's going to win. Right. And so we did a lot of breaking down the game. And then when, who came in next? Chris. I think Chris and Todd. We kind of did the same thing for most of the day. We would just break down. And then when they told us we were allowed to have alcohol in our room, that was fun. And I think Amanda came in the first night. So we had fun. I mean, we really did. We played some games, and we even jumped out the window at one point because we wanted to go outside so bad, and they didn't want us to be mingling with other people. So we sat outside our window. But it was fun. You really got to know people like on a more personal level that you didn't really know much about, and had a blast. I mean, really did. I loved it. And then the next day when more and more people came in, it just became more. And some of the people, like, I was talking to Sarah and I'm like, you just didn't seem like you liked me or you didn't want to talk to me. And she's like, I just don't like girls. I wasn't really planning to work with girls. And I was like, well, I'm the same, but so, it was good to hear why people acted the way they did and understand like some of the strategy going on that you just didn't see.
Mhm.
Your brain fog or you just, misread people. It was really enlightening to see everybody's game and what they were doing. And like I said,
Mhm.
the weird thing was like going to get food or whatever, and you'd see everybody and you weren't allowed to talk to them. And then you'd feel bad like that you voted them out and they couldn't come in the jury room. So that was hard, but it was for the most part very fun and very eye-opening as to what was going on in some cases.
Mhm. So the final tribal council ends up being Justin versus Ronnie, and you cast your vote for Justin to win. What were the important factors for you in that vote?
That was such a hard vote. When I went and I keep calling him Shane came after he got voted out third. I mean, I was devastated. I was 1,000,000% going to vote for Shane. I
Mhm.
thought he was going to be at the final two.
Mhm.
Felt good about it. Like I had heard all the things he did and how he had this kind of game under the radar, but was doing all this stuff. I was just so impressed. And I think I even said that when I asked my question, like I was totally going to vote for Shane. I don't know what I'm
Mhm.
going to do because, Justin, I just didn't have a good relationship with,
Mhm.
not a bad relationship. I just didn't have a lot of time. We didn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew like from talking to Mike that he was like this, he had played live games. He was had his, like, this is his own org game and big gamer. And then Ronnie, I was like, who I really liked and thought he was just such a class act guy. I didn't have a lot of time or talk a lot with either. And I thought, the same thing I said about why I wanted to vote him out. Like, I didn't know if it was as important to him to win. Like when he
Mhm.
just wanted to make jury, like he was just happy with that. And I didn't, I felt like, working around camp's a big part of it. And I know he's older, a few years older than me and didn't feel good, but I'm still like, I don't know, Lydia didn't feel good and she still like did some stuff. And
Mhm.
I had this struggle between, do I want this gamer like that probably has so much experience and strategy and has played things and is so far ahead of me and
Mhm.
probably a lot of people from just what he does in his everyday life. And does it mean anything for him to win? Like as much as it would like Ronnie, who may never do this again and probably
Mhm.
won't, but didn't really put in as much effort, in my opinion, in strategizing, socializing, all that. So that was kind of why I asked the question, like, what does this mean to you? What do you get out of it other than Justin, you just want to win? And
Mhm.
Ronnie, why did you even sign up? What's your motive for all this? And I honestly loved Ronnie's answer. It was spot on. I thought, and after the fact, I said to my husband, I said, said something to him like, I know you didn't feel good and you couldn't do a lot of things. And I thought that would have been Ronnie's way to win. If he
Mhm.
had said, that was what my game. I felt fine. I just wanted you idiots to run around and do everything and then get to the end and win. If he would have said that, I would have voted for him. I
If there
think
was intentionality,
what?
if
Yeah,
there was an intentionality to it.
yeah, that it was his game to act like he didn't feel good. And I thought, God, that was your opening. Had you said that, I think we all would have voted for you. But, he didn't. He was very honest about it. But I liked his answer and it really resonated with me. And a lot of my friends and family, like, I thought that you were going to vote for him because you could relate. And I struggled because I
Mhm.
really, but for me, I'm such a huge Survivor geek and I love the game and the strategy so much that I couldn't not vote for Justin after hearing that he was pretty much running that Carlton
Yeah.
group and making. So I was like, from a game perspective, and as much as I respect this game, I have to vote for Justin.
Mhm.
So that's where I came to that. But I felt terrible when I met Ronnie's wife at the after party, and I was like, oh, he's like, I thought I'd get one vote. I'm like, you almost got mine. It was rough though. I wanted Shane to win. I thought Shane deserved it.
So one of the things that happens once you finish these games is your mind is full of the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, right? And so we talked a little about this very beginning, but looking back your season, what are some key moments that you wish you made different decisions?
I mean, definitely number one is Frank. I wish I would have trusted what we talked about the one time we had a conversation about it. I wish I wouldn't have gotten paranoid. I wish I would have understood kind of the unspoken word was a better way to go. I feel like even though Todd and I didn't say like we're an alliance, we were obviously working together. We
Mhm.
obviously had a close relationship, and I feel like that was way too visible,
Mhm.
and maybe I shouldn't have spent so much time with him and made that so visible. Maybe that would have helped me. I feel like I maybe misjudged Jerica, like she was so brilliant that I think maybe I should have kept her and gotten into a better alliance with her, because she just, like on the challenges, like they'd say the rules and I'd be like, what? And she'd be like, oh, you just do this. You just do it. Don't worry about what he said. Just be like, and she was so helpful and she knew it so well. And I feel like she really did want to try to do like a girls thing. She had said that to me a few times. I feel like I probably should have, thought more about keeping her around and shouldn't have believed, maybe what Amanda told me, somebody that was on the other tribe. Like that was stupid. Why would I just believe her? Because I made a connection with her at the first, hour of the thing. Like that was something I regretted. Carlos, I just felt bad. I really wanted to work with him. I liked him. We connected. And after I initially voted for him, I told him, like, I'm not going to vote for you again. Like, I feel like, you got a bad rap and like, maybe we can do something. And we both say now, like, we should have invested in that a little more, and tried to do something together, to kind of keep him in. And I never did write down his name again, but, he was just seen kind of as a flipper or whatever. And so he kind of got a raw deal, I felt. But I think though, like Frank is definitely the biggest. I feel like, even at the merge, it would have been, had we not done that giant circle, maybe individually, if I had talked to Taylor before that, or I did after, but it was too late at that point. And maybe jumped into that more quickly when we merged before that all happened, and talked to Mike and Taylor, which is who I would have talked to. Maybe we could have flipped that. I still feel like it would have been a long shot, but yeah, I mean that, and like, just, I'm already taking kayaking lessons now. So that I thought of everything to practice, and I'm just still so mad at myself about that. But yeah, those are probably the biggest, and just, and not looking for the idol immediately. Like it was ridiculous how fast Todd found it. And then it was right there. And I was like, I did get a clue at some point for the idol at the other camp. And I'm pretty sure that I was looking in the right arch, because I think that's where Mike said or Taylor said
man, if you had found that, that would have been crazy.
No. It was already gone, but yeah. And then the other thing I regret, like you could go to the store after a challenge, but before the next tribal council. And I did, the first time that we were able to, I didn't do it the second time because I felt safe. I'm like, I don't need anything. I didn't know Todd had the idol. I'm like, if anything happens, Todd and Chris are going to definitely go before me. I've got time. Like, and I had gotten like $40 in that money grab thing. So I had money and I didn't go. And then, the next time, or the last time I went, when I knew I was going to go the next tribal council of something, there was no advantage. And I had a lot of money and I was so mad. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the video. I looked through everything in the store thinking it was hidden. Like I shook every box. So you can see my Cracker Jacks back here. I thought prize inside. I bet there's a clue.
Which I like that idea.
I was so excited. I thought I had nailed it. And I went and snuck off and go into the bathroom, and I'm like, oh, there's just these god awful. I hate Cracker Jacks. And I'm like, I don't even want to eat them. But I wish, like, that I think the one store that I didn't go to, maybe I could have gotten something. I just felt safe because I thought I had two bigger people that they'd go for before me. I didn't realize that people would see me as any type of a social threat. But again, didn't realize what a tight group they were. And of course, you don't want somebody that's likable and nice to come over and try to shake that up. So I get it, but I just didn't see myself as threatening as them. And so wasn't worried.
So after this experience, like, has it been hard to get the game out of your mind? Have you just been constantly turning over the past couple of weeks since then?
I literally probably every other night have dreams that I am there and I am in a challenge. And, I wake up like in this cold sweat. I told my husband the other night I was, I guess I had crackers and I rolled, like I forgot to move them before I went to sleep and I must have rolled on them. And I was like, woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm in the sand. And I thought I was like in the sand in a challenge and I was freaking out. And I was like, oh, it's just crackers. But I mean, so many weird things like that with dreams have happened. And I did for the first week, we couldn't stop talking about it. Like no matter what we tried to start talking about, because since he was there and saw it all, so like he was asking me all these questions because he's not quite as big of a fan as I am. And then we dissect what other people were doing or what we thought. And the more I watched your interviews, I'm like, wait, what? Those have driven me crazy because I'm like,
I'm sorry about that. That's an intentional consequence of all this.
But it was very interesting. But I was like, oh my God, how did I not see that? So yeah, it's getting better. Like I'm starting, like I said, when I got out of the game, I was happy. I was like proud of myself that I actually could sleep outside for 5 nights. That part was so much easier than I thought. Like once I was dirty, I didn't care. My first luxury item I was going to bring were body wipes. And my brother's this huge outdoorsy guy, does the Appalachian Trail. He's like, you're going to get dirty again. Like that's the stupidest thing you could ever bring.
What did you end up bringing?
Well, I ended up bringing a waterproof blanket, which was helpful and warm when it got really cold those 2 nights. But that part of it, I amazed myself. I didn't think I'd last. I thought I might quit if it rained, and it did. And it rained hard. We got drenched in that challenge and it was freezing. But so that part, I was just super proud. And I really, I prepared everybody before I left. I'm like, you guys, I'll probably be the first or second person voted out because I'm older and I'm a woman and I'm smaller and it's probably going to be younger people. And everybody's like, you're already giving up. And I'm like, no, I'm just like, I don't want you guys to think I'm going to win.
I'm tempering your expectations.
Yes, lower the expectations. So, I mean, the fact that I was able to navigate that and kind of adapt to a tribe that I didn't really talk to as much at the meet and greet and really become, friends with these people and kind of jump around to the swap and the merge and at least last to the jury. I mean, I was super proud of it. Are there a million things I wish I would have seen or done differently? Yes. But all in all, I had the greatest time of my life. I did so much better than I thought was going to happen. And now I'm just I was talking to Shane on Messenger and I'm like, so what other games are out there?
Oh, there's a whole wiki. I can send you a whole wiki of them.
Please do. I'm very interested. I'm still can't really even figure out the orgs. Everybody's like, you can come on my org game. I'm like, I can't even find them. But but it really is. It's almost intoxicating and now you're I want to go play another one because I would do so many things differently, right? I think, but then you think if you I feel like almost coming in more green is sometimes advantageous because I could see some people playing so aggressively so early, and that's probably why they got voted out because they knew so much and they felt like that. So I think there's a balance there between over strategizing and over aggression and being really green where you're kind of lost some of the time, but I would definitely, one more time. And they kept asking my husband if he would ever play. And I said, you want to see a good show? You do a blood versus water, and you put us on opposite tribes. I said, I will vote his ass out in a second, and he will feel bad and never vote me out. So let's do it.
They did blood versus water 2 years ago, and that would have been amazing if you voted out your husband.
I mean, we're just so different. He's they call him Golden Todd at Surviving Reelfoot. He really is just the nicest person in the world. And he was so supportive of me doing this, all my crazy things I was doing and in the backyard. He even said it, if I ever got on Real Survivor, he'd build me all the obstacle courses in the backyard. He just knows I'm so passionate about it. And, took off a whole week to go do this with me. And I mean, so supportive. But yeah, I'm much meaner. I know it didn't appear to it, but I have a side where I'm very competitive and I wouldn't think twice about it, but I know he would. So I think I'd last longer.
So after
Frank evilness in me.
Frank is collecting a chaotic army for his return. That's all I can say.
Frank is hysterical. I've seen him twice since because he lives about maybe 40 minutes from me. And we've gone over there a couple times and went down to the Dr. Stan's house to watch Big Brother the other night in Louisville. But God, he is the most entertaining, interesting, fun person I think I've ever met in my life. I just adore him. It's been so fun getting to know him and just makes me feel worse about what I did.
So how has your experience changed how you watch Survivor or how you think about Survivor, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you, if someday I would ever really get on that show, it is so much harder. I just thought people why are you doing these stupid things? Or the thing that I thought was the craziest was just your brain after we were only out there 7 days or, I was only out there 5 nights, 6 days, but after 2 days of barely any food and no sleep hardly, I mean, you couldn't remember people's names. You couldn't remember, I remember when Chris came in the jury room and he goes, God, this is all we have. What do you guys do all the time? And I'm like, Chris, I've been here an hour. It hasn't been that much, but you lose all track of time. We couldn't remember that we had voted Aaron out the same day. We thought it happened yesterday and all kinds of crazy things. And it seems to go like at challenges, you seem to somehow get yourself in the right mind space and get there. But all the other parts of the game where you're just kind of losing your mind, it's really hard to strategize. Like you think in your real life, you totally like, I work in a job where I multitask and I can read people and I can have 40 scenarios of how I'm going to sell somebody something. Right. But there, like after 2 days, it was like strategy. I remember like listening, I think to some plans Lydia had and from Chris. And I was like, I can't follow you. Like, I can't even follow all of this, right? Just tell me what to do. And that's the part I think, was eye-opening is that, God, if you were really out there for 39 days, I can't imagine like how hard it would be to strategize. So I think, that was a big eye-opening thing. And it's just harder than I would have thought. Like watching it from home, you're like, I can do that challenge. Like, that's just balance or that's just memory. But on day 2 or 3, like your memory is not what it was day 1. And like, remembering colors in a row or, the trivia, like God, I remember walking around with Amanda all day trying to prepare for like who won what challenge, who was prisoner of war. And it took me like hours to get it all straight. Like in my real life, I could probably do that, in 20 minutes but you can't. So you got to be prepared for that. I think, and you've got to figure out a way to sleep. that was I barely slept. And that's something. And you can't like, I guess you can't like where I still think, given the situation was similar to what it was, I still think I would play very low key the first part of the game, just female, age, smaller, all that. But I feel like, sometimes if you wait too long, you lose your chance to do any strategic. And I even though I was working with Todd and we did some blindsides together, I lost a chance to make a move on my own because I just never saw the merge coming where there was going to be virtually nothing I could do.
Yeah.
And you just feel like, known this, we wouldn't have voted Frank out and like, da-da-da.
Yeah.
So it's all hindsight. But yeah, I just think, in building up arm strength, that was something, even though I did good on the paddle one, like, I think that's huge. And just, literally watching the challenges and not just saying, oh, I got to learn the end part of that challenge so I can outlast somebody. You have to like figure them all out and really, because there were things in this game that I wouldn't have expected that came up. And then there were things I practiced to death that were never any part of it. So you got to do it all.
Well, is there anything else about their game that we haven't brought up you'd like to talk about, or can I throw some rapid questions at you to kind of wrap things up here?
Throw rapid questions at me.
All right. What was your favorite challenge?
Obviously the paddleball one where I got to did the best. I did like that one. I liked that one. I liked the color, the where we had to do the balance beam and the Post-it notes and memorize the color. I really liked that one. I thought we were going to win that one. I wish I kind of have photographic memory pretty good. And we all decided to memorize like a row. And I thought afterwards, like I probably could have memorized half the board and I should have, because I would have probably been able to see the 2 or 3 that were out of place on the bottom had I done that. But I like those kind of memory things. I was very excited for the one we got disqualified in. Thanks, Chris. Just kidding. Because Nikki and I were out like waiting to unscramble the letters, like, way in the last part of the challenge, they were in a plastic bag. So we could kind of see the letters, even though it was pouring down. And I had, just looking through the bag, I had figured out 2 of the words. I didn't know the first one, but I had 2 of them figured out, but it never got to us, unfortunately. But like, that's the kind of stuff I really do well. It is like word puzzles and things like that. So I'd say probably those 2, even though we didn't get to finish that one, were my favorite.
And what are some memorable camp life moments for you?
Oh, I loved when we did the Purple Rain. When we first were purple, I said something about like Prince and Purple Rain. And then when we had that challenge, Todd was like, REIGN. And I'm like, that's perfect. Like, that was genius. And just like, we all worked together, like making the crop circles was just a nightmare. But like, it was fun. We had so much fun doing that. And everybody like had different ideas and we all worked so well together. I love that. I loved the first night. We were, just kind of getting to know each other, and Nikki had brought a mosquito net. So me and Skylar and Nikki were all under it. We could fit all 3 of our heads under it. So it was it was kind of like, we were like, God, we feel like we're like so special. Like everybody else has got bugs all over them and we're protected. But it was so beautiful, like looking up, like there were lightning bugs everywhere. It was like a show. It was the most beautiful thing I think I've ever seen in my life. But we just had some funny conversations. That's when we were going to have a tribe song, and we asked Carlos to start it. And he's like, "Here we are." And we're like, "What?" Like nothing you'd think Carlos is like a clubber, like he was going to have some really great lyric. And so that's why we'd always sing that at our challenges. But it was just fun conversation about just like our lives and different party stories, and really kind of got to know each other a lot. And I loved when Frank was running around making the hammock. That was hysterical to watch. I knew he would do it the second they told him that somebody wanted him to, and he did a great job. I can't remember who eventually broke it, but it was awesome. But yeah, and like I said, I totally enjoyed just even though we hardly ate, just like sitting around, the campfire and like drying our clothes or eating rice. It's so out of my realm of my real world that it just seems so cool to me that like, oh my God, like we're all out here and we have nothing, and we're having these fun conversations. And like Frank, I practiced fire so much before I came, and it was obvious Frank was the Boy Scout of the group and was doing a lot of stuff. But I loved when he like said somebody else needs to make fire, like this could be a challenge, like you guys need to do this. And so I don't know if anybody else did, but I like jumped up. I'm like, I want to make the next one. And he like helped me, and I got my first fire started there. So I thought that was awesome, the way he was trying to like, help us all, just like, don't lay back and just let me do it. This might come back to haunt you. And it would have, had any of us made it to that end part. But yeah, it was just great, companionship. And like the people were just so awesome, every single one of them. And so many great memories. Like it's almost impossible. I've been trying to just write things down as I think of it, because you kind of forget quickly. And but it was just awesome.
What was the lowest moment for you?
Oddly, it wasn't when I got voted out, because I totally expected it, and I tried everything, and and like I said, I was proud of where I got. So that wasn't. I think it was the realization that we should not have voted Frank out. And
when was that?
What?
When did that realization really hit you?
It wasn't right when it happened. I still felt okay about it, but when we merged, and the more I thought about it, and the more I was talking to different people, I thought, God, that was stupid. Like, we don't have numbers. Maybe I was paranoid. I didn't have anybody to check that with, because Jerica and Skylar were already gone, but I felt bad about that. And I felt like, God, that might have been one of the stupidest things we could have done, given we had the numbers for once, the only time in the game we had the numbers. So I had, and when I realized, they're going to pick us off, there's nothing we can do. I was like, wow, that would have at least given us a fighting chance, and we blew it. So that was hard to swallow after I thought more about it.
What was your highest moment?
Gosh, I would say, I don't know. I think it's when like I actually played my advantage correctly and didn't even know for sure that I did. And actually lasted a couple tribal councils past when I think that I would have had things gone a different way. I think, I knew that I was not in a great position, as the further it got in the game with how things were playing out. And of course, once I found out about the idol, I was, happy that I was able to at least make it to the jury and didn't get voted out, pre-jury.
Who surprised you the most?
Shane. I would say Shane. I thought he was just this happy-go-lucky kid that was just out having fun playing a game. And he was doing so much more than that. And everything he did was plotted, like from losing his water, pretending to lose his water bottle. And yeah, I think he was just brilliant. And I'm not an easy one to get fooled, and I was completely blinded to what he was doing until after the game. And I think I just thought I didn't think he was doing anything in that camp. I didn't even think he was like in the top couple, and he made it to 3. So I think he probably surprised me the most. Chris, actually, I didn't work with him initially, but the more I got to know him, he was just such an interesting person. I loved his personality. I loved that he brought a ukulele. It was so nice for when he played at night. Like, you don't realize how nice that is, like just to have music, right, when you're out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, and I wouldn't have thought him and I would have clicked, but I so enjoyed our conversations, and I so enjoyed just he was so unfiltered. He would just say the funniest, truest things, and I would just crack up constantly when I talked to him. So, I mean, he was a nice surprise. So much like, you know, we would joke because he started mumbling more and more, and it was hard to understand him the more he got the brain fog. But he was just so fun.
So what's your favorite advantage in Survivor, and why is it safety without power?
What is my favorite advantage?
Advantage in Survivor, and why is it safety without power?
Why isn't it safety without power?
Why is it? Pete's saying that you yelled at him how much you hated that advantage when you got it.
I was so upset when I got it. I almost wanted to give it back, because in my situation it worked, thank God. But in most situations, you're screwing over your team. Because you usually don't have a whole lot of extra people voting. And if you get up and leave to save yourself, it's like you're abandoning your tribe, right? So I felt like it's a negative, even though it might save me one night. Everybody's gonna be mad at me if I screw up a vote because I leave, because I get paranoid, right? Luckily, it didn't happen in my case because we didn't have the numbers.
You did it right.
Yeah, but in general, that is definitely the one I hate the most. I just think it puts a target on your back once you do it, because people are mad that you took off. My favorite one, of course, would probably be like extra vote or cancel.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And my last question is, who's the one person you wish you worked with or had a chance to work with?
I think Shane or Mike, like if on the other tribe, I thought they were both cool guys. I had a connection with them. Like I thought, I wished with the merge that could have happened. I thought they both played brilliant games. I felt terrible how upset Mike was outside of the game, and I think if he plays again, he'll win. But I just thought, we would have, either one of them, I think, would have been great to work with. Also, I thought Lydia as well, because where she was probably way more strategic, like I said, she had seemed like so much strategy going on in her head. I feel like I could have been maybe the social part of that, because she had social anxiety and had some issues. So I thought maybe we could have worked well together as well. So I'd say probably one of those three that I didn't really get to work with much at all would probably be my three. Even though you said one, I said three.
And last but not least, would you play another game like this?
I would play it in a heartbeat. There's so many things I learned, and it was so much more than I thought it was going to be, from just the game and how realistic it was to really actually liking the people. I thought I was going to go on and be like, I'm going to have to fake like I like all these people. Like, God, it's only 7 days. But I literally love these people. And, I hope like I stay in touch with them forever. Pete said it's a family, and it really becomes that. Like we have instant messages and like messenger things going on constant. Like the first week I'm like, okay, I'm going to get fired because I'm talking to these people more than I'm doing my job. But I hope my company's not watching. But anyway, no. And I feel like it was just the greatest experience. And just from a personal perspective, it just taught me so much about myself and like what I can push myself to do. And that's, just totally out of my comfort zone to be with like all these strangers, and out of my comfort zone to be out in the elements like that. So now that I've proven that I can do those things that I wouldn't worry about as much next time, I think I could totally, the strategy part would be much easier when I'm not worried about snakes and bugs and all those kinds of things. But yeah, 100%. I think it was a blast.
Well, Sherry, I think that's all for me. Everyone who's tuned in today, thank you so much for taking time listening. Sherry, again, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and giving us the definitive last word of how the season went. I'm hopefully this is the last, again, scheduled interview I have. There's a couple of people I've been kind of talking to, trying to flag down. I don't know. We'll see if it happens, but I'll let everyone know if it does. But if for now, this is our last Surviving Reelfoot deep dive, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks. Appreciate it.